It's Barney Cargile with your encouraging word for today on Saturday, April the 18th. And our word for today, or words for today, is God is not dead. You know, Martin Luther was one of the greatest and most courageous men in church history. But during his lifetime, he faced tremendous opposition and persecution because he took such a strong stand for truth, which led to him to experience bouts of fear and depression at times. And so early on in his marriage to Katharina von Bora, he came home one day and he was going through a state of depression. And so she was wearing black and she had a black veil on. And so he kind of froze and he said, who died? And without even looking up, she continued her work and said, God did. And he goes, I'm sorry, what'd you say? And she said, God died. And he goes, Katie, God isn't dead. He's very much alive. How can you say such a thing? And she stopped and looked at him and said, well, based on how you've been acting, I can only assume God is dead. Now, all of us experience that at times, and it's understandable. But even David did in the Old Testament. In Psalm 10 and verse 1, David said, why, Lord, do you stand far off? Why do you hide yourself in times of trouble? Now, God wasn't hiding himself, but that's just how David felt. In Psalm 13 and verse 1, how long, Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? Now, God wasn't hiding from David, but that's what David was feeling. And all of us experience this at times. And when you say things or you act like Luther did or you write these kinds of things like David did, you can really, what we're basically saying is, God, you're not here. You're not with me. It's basically saying God is dead. Now, I got to tell you, I'm going to confess and be real with you. I've experienced some of these same feelings this past week. For those of us living here in Sonoma County, our chief medical officer has said that basically things are going to continue as is. The shelter in place is not going to be lifted until early June. And I started becoming kind of despondent because we have a business that it provides our primary source of income and we're not open. And I'm thinking, how are we going to get through this? We have all kinds of business expenses, personal expenses that we rely on. And basically what I was doing was removing God from the equation. Because when you start believing that things are not going to work out, you're picturing a future without God. And you might as well say, God is dead. Because, see, God lives in the moment. Each and every moment. He is the great I am. In fact, he had the Israelites gather manna, you remember, in the wilderness every day for 40 years to teach them to depend on him day by day. And so, really, that's the message that God wants for us. God is not dead. He's very much alive. He's aware of what every one of us is going through, and he wants us to learn to depend on him. And that is my encouraging word for today.